Hi, Flav. Hi, Barbara. Hi, Kelsey.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Dodger fan.
So I've set everyone, while we're getting ready, I've set everyone to be able to unmute themselves. Will you just check to see if you can unmute yourself? And if you can't, just wave at me or let me know.
Olivia's shaking her head no, that she's not able to unmute.
Okay, let's try that again. I don't know why that, we had the same problem the other day, and I don't know why. I'm trying to say aloud.
It should be good now.
Okay, try it, Barbara. Nope.
Now I can.
Now you can try it, Barbara. See if you can. Okay, so Chris can do it. Can anybody else unmute themselves, or is everybody muted?
Olivia is shaking her head. I don't think she can do it.
Okay, I see a lot of people can't, huh? We had the same problem the other day, and I don't know what to do besides hitting the button that says, let me do this. Unmute everybody, and then everybody can remute themselves. So everybody's unmuted. If you're making weird noises, sorry. I should probably have warned you before I was doing that. So now you can mute yourself again, and then see if you've muted yourself, see if you can unmute yourself. I'm going to mute Susie, just because she probably doesn't know that we've unmuted her. So Barbara, can you unmute yourself now? No. Okay. I'm going to unmute you, and then let's see if you can. Actually, Barbara, you're one person I cannot unmute. Let me see if I can.
I'm going to press the unmute, but it says I cannot.
There you are.
You're on. You are unmuted.
You are now unmuted.
But it says you cannot unmute yourself because the host muted you. But I am unmuted, so I'm good. Okay. Now, if I mute myself, I can't I can't go back.
Okay. Okay, and right now my mouse is failing. Hang on a second.
Thanks. See you.
Okay, hang on a second. I'm having mouse issues, so even if I can't even do anything. Could you, Michael? Could you let Nicole in, and could you see if you can unmute anybody?
Working on that.
Okay.
Letting everybody in.
Okay.
I could unmute. I can mute all, and I could unmute all.
Okay, but then
Go back. try this because right now I can't do anything.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I've got the ability to mute all, apparently. So why don't I begin?
The thing at the bottom. Okay.
So Michael, if you just keep everybody, if you unmute people, if they want to be unmuted, you have to unmute them.
I can do that.
They can't unmute themselves. So
yeah, we'll take breaks when they can do that.
okay.
I'll explain.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm going to mute everybody for the beginning of the meeting.
Good.
Can everyone hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's community meeting for Lincoln Middle School. My name is Michael Burke, and I'm a design manager with the school district, and I will be the moderator for tonight's presentation. Carrie Upton will also be moderating, and he'll be with you momentarily. Over the past few months, we've been working with several architects on how we can update our school campuses to be more in line with the district's educational specs geared toward 21st century learning. Architecture for Education was selected for the Lincoln campus, and Rachel Adams will be presenting their ideas to you shortly. These assessments included site observations, meetings with school principals, administration, individual teachers, parents, and our facilities use department to identify areas of the schools that need improvement. For meetings, site visits, and documents, the architects developed a series of short-term and long-term campus plans. The result of this exercise will be presented tonight, and we look forward to your comments at the end of the presentation. The projects outlined tonight will be refined through the summer and presented to you again in the fall for further comments and prioritization. The plans and project lists from each campus will be brought to the school board in the fall for approval. Approval will be based upon available funding allocation for elementary and middle schools. The projects that are approved for funding will move into the design process and then develop for construction. We plan to have some of these projects in the design and engineering phases in 2021. Please note, tonight's presentation is now posted on the district website if you would like to review it at another time. At this point, I would like to introduce Carrie Upton, Chief Operations Officer of the Santa Monica Malibu Unified School District.
Hello, hi. You're going to see me twice because I have two computers. One of them is not working, but if I feel that if I turn off the one that isn't working, I'm going to do this for a moment, and then I'll try to switch it over in a second. We are recording this event this evening, and that includes the chats, even the chat. So just know that you put something there that it's there. So welcome. Hi, my name's Carrie Upton. I'm the Chief Operations Officer. I want to thank you all for being with us tonight, and very exciting time where we're looking at how we might develop the Lincoln campus over time for to improve our educational experience. I have to say a few things, a few caveats that just to what we're doing. First off, it's important to say that we are looking to spend bond funds, which are Measure SMS funds. These are moved 2018 to spend on this as part of our general obligation bond, and they are not or cannot be spent for general operating expenses. So it's actually in the bond language that they cannot be spent to pay for teachers, for staff, for stuff. It can only be used to improve facilities. So it's a little odd that at the same moment we're talking about spending and trying to allocate $100 million, that at that same moment also talking we need to make cuts, deep cuts at our school. Also, these funds are not impacted and should not be impacted by the current experience we're having with COVID-19 and the virus. So, you know, we are going to still have these funds, and that is still going to continue to work. I see that my bandwidth is low, which means you might not be able to hear me. Okay.
We can hear you okay.
You can hear us okay? Okay, just some technical difficulties.
We can hear you okay.
Good. I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah.
I talked about the first thing. I have two more things, two more caveats to say, and I'll jump right in on that. Okay, those are bond funds. Sorry, I lost my place. Tonight, you're going to look at both an assessment of where the campus is and how learning is happening at the campus, but we'll also be discussing, which was called the Education. It's a very expansive and interesting document that talks about how over time, you know, how our facilities will support our educational structure. It's a great thing. It's great to read. It is an aspirational document. So it is saying that, you know, we know where we want to go, some tests that expand and say we're going in the future and where we might rethink the entire campus, but then we'll bring you back to some very specific projects that will be next and that we have money for at this time with Measure SMS. And those decisions will be made as far as I work through this. I do invite you to participate and to jump in at any time. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel Adams from Architecture for Education. Run away with
Great. I'll be sharing my screen here. So can everyone see it? Should say Lincoln Middle School right there at the front.
Yes.
Great. And with technology, sometimes there's a lag, so I'll try to be slow going through the slides, but not so slow that we run too long. But first I want to say thank you so much for this opportunity to work with you. We've been we're excited to kind of go through tonight's presentation, and there will be times where we can open it up for comment and question. However, in the meantime, there is always the chat box on the side. So if you think of something on a slide and we're not at the open discussion time yet, please feel free to jot that note down or remember it and share it when we are at the sharing spot. So we're going to be spending some time showing you our analysis of the campus, looking for some input on your top priorities, showing you some of those planning options for the big future, and again, getting your input, then showing you next steps for the immediate future. But first, we are Architecture for Education, also known as A4E. I'm Rachel Adams. I'm the principal in charge. Hello, I think someone's with us. And also with me is Olivia Graff-Doyle. She is my partner and our design principal with the firm. We're a middle-sized firm based in Pasadena, and we only design educational facilities, and we view it as educational facilities for those lifelong learners. However, we're just a part of the team. The team has been made up of the district leaderships with Santa Monica, Malibu. Florence and Principal Culpepper has brought together a great steering committee of leaders from the campus, as well as a site planning committee that we've been meeting with. Now we're adding you, getting the community input. You'll be an important part of the success of these projects moving forward. So we look forward to what you have to share with today. Every discussion, every decision that we make is guided by the Santa Monica Malibu mission and vision statements. The projects are developed here to help close any achievement gaps that you have. I think a few more folks want to get into the meeting. So to close those achievement gaps, but also to support your future global citizens. And we take that to heart with every decision that's made. We're also building on the successes of your campus, the district-wide planning that's already been completed. The campus improvements are geared to support your project-based learning and the whole child approach that Principal Culpepper and your Lincoln Middle School teachers and administration already pursue. So as your campus improvements move forward,
You're muted now.
Design. Oh, I think everyone got muted. Let's see. Can you hear me now again?
Yes, you're back up.
Okay, great. So I will repeat myself just in case. So we're looking forward to folding the sustainability plan of your school district into all the design opportunities moving forward. So campus planning and campus improvements process really is a journey. It's punctuated by construction, by engagement, by planning and learning. Lincoln Middle School originally was built in 1934, I think. It's already completed quite a journey so far for 86 years. And so you now, the community, are here to plan for the next journey that it's going to take. And we're at the beginning of it. We're here at the beginning, start of this next stage of the journey, the campus planning. And even campus planning is made up of many steps. And one of those steps here is highlighted by our meeting with you tonight, the community. So tonight we'll be asking for your input before we proceed to these next steps in the campus planning. And then, as you can see, the community is engaged every step of the way as projects are planned for, constructed, and moved forward to the next phase. Your insight will give us those long-term goals, as well as insight on these quick start projects that we can use the current bond funds for. So just for your reference, we've completed several steering and planning committee meetings. Charrettes, we call them, workshops where we're looking at ideas. And that's brought us to the point today where we can meet with you. As I said before, we're building on district successes already. There has been several facility improvements projects at Lincoln Middle School. You have the new library, the building for 300 modernization is going to be wrapping up this year, as well as an HVAC replacement program throughout the entire campus. Some of these campus assessment projects were flagged for Lincoln Middle School, and the point of the master plan is to vet these as being a project to move forward with and ensure that they are really going to suit and serve your campus the best. So April visited Lincoln Middle School a number of times. We've walked with Principal Culpepper. We've reviewed historical records of the building's construction. And I'm going to stay on this drawing just to orient folks. I know you're very familiar with your campus, but architectural drawings, maybe not. So on the top left, we have building 500, the building that hosts the wood shop is in there. As you can see in the back, you have your track and field. Just under 500 is the library building, the new two-story building on the west side of the campus. In front of that, we have building 400, which is your music and arts. Next to that, and at the very front of the campus, is your auditorium. In the heart of the campus is the original building. It hosts admin on the ground floor, as well as classrooms and science labs upstairs. We also have the front lawn, a favorite spot for the students and teachers alike. And next to that, the dining and food service. With behind it is building 300. It hosts some special ed classrooms as well as general classrooms and science. The blacktop here, those are those basketball courts that everyone loves. The parking lot here at the front. And then we have the gymnasium, locker room, and pool. So while completing the campus analysis, we facilitated a number of these workshops, these charrettes, and each charrette contained a number of exercises allowing us to learn more about Lincoln Middle School and its needs, but also allowing your planning committee, your representatives, to really dream big. Give it a second to load. So our first charrette looked at priorities. What are their opportunities on the campus? What are the challenges for the campus? And your campus planning committee highlighted a number of items, but we narrowed down the focus to 4 top priorities. Building 500 here, the one with the wood shop, it has a significant opportunity for either renovation or replacement. We can enlarge the classrooms. We can augment the existing wood shop to support other makerspace activities like robotics. We can revitalize some of these outdoor courtyard spaces. And we had some inspiration from the student garden and these little painted rocks for student memories. The auditorium is another top priority, improving the quality of this space, enlarging some of its support spaces, as well as improving its accessibility to the public. Last but not least, another top priority was food service. The cafeteria, both on its exterior connection to the campus, as well as functioning kitchen and serving as well. And the trash and delivery being at the front of the school was a challenge. So another exercise we completed was the day-to-day circulation. Which pathways at the campus were really well worn and well loved? The centralized admin and the front lawn were 2 topmost visited spaces. The committee also spoke of keeping this heart of the campus intact and celebrating that heart. We then went out of the box into a visioning exercise. What's the quality of the space that you're looking for at Lincoln Middle School? Texture, color, connection to the outdoors. These were some of the ideas that floated to the top during that discussion. During the second charrette, we stepped into the shoes of a student. Her name was Florence. It was a coincidence, no relation. But what classes did she enjoy? How could the facility support her in her journey through middle school? And to talk about her journey, we looked at inspiration. We looked at different types of classrooms, different types of outdoor spaces and gathering spaces, inspiring gymnasiums and cafeterias and concert halls. We then dug into a little bit of detail on the priority of these priority type spaces. So for food service, for example, what does it need to host? What are the duties of it, the role of this food service, and what tools does it need to support those things? So for charrette 3, we focused on the Santa Monica Malibu Ed specs, how that vision would overlay onto your existing Lincoln Middle School campus. If you want a copy for yourselves, as Carrie mentioned, it is available on the district website. And it is, as he said, aspirational for what we were looking to do. A couple of things of interest that we wanted to point out is the standard classroom in the Ed spec. It's larger, and it is intended to offer opportunities for collaborating and project-based learning to kind of join in with the outside, either being a hallway or an alternate space outdoors to extend that project-based learning. I'll center my image again here. So another item of interest in the Ed specs is the teaming studio. This is a space outside of your typical classroom space. It allows for even larger collaboration, 2 teachers coming together, developing a project, a math and history project. It offers opportunity for not just social collaboration, but storage and resources such as 3D printers to serve the students. Very exciting. And don't forget the outdoors. So we are always looking at how can we invigorate these outdoor spaces. They're loved by students during lunch and break. How do we make them useful during the school day, where experiments can fold out to the outside? And what kind of outside connections can our existing Lincoln Middle School classes enjoy? Is it all folding out into a large lawn space, or will each classroom have a small courtyard? What's possible and what's preferred? So Avery and Santa Monica Malibu all know that the quality of the space impacts your learning and impacts the health and safety of everyone that's in there. And so all of the projects that we'll be looking at and working on to do take that into consideration to see not only how can we impact your learning, but how can we support everyone as they move forward. So now's the time where we can pause for a minute and open the floor. So we can unmute your microphones. The chat is also available. And the question we have to ask you is, what are your priorities for the improvements at Lincoln Middle School?
Let's see. I see, Rufus, you've opened up your microphone.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's hardly a surprise to those who know me, but one of my priorities would be the pool. I've been pushing to get kids water safe, and we've had some luck in the last year or two with Florence's help. We've got a bunch of kids water safe, and I think it's something that just has lots of benefits. I know that there was talk of potentially getting an outside pool there, which I think would be fantastic. We do live in Southern California after all. So yeah, I'd love to have that registered as something that I think that there's a general community interest in, and participation. I mean, I'm obviously on the board of Team Santa Monica, so if there's any way that the club team can help, we'd be totally interested in helping out as well. Just general participation, being part of the community.
Great.
Great, thank you.
Stefan, or Stefan?
Yes.
Hello, Stefan.
Yes, I'm here. Let's see. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So, well, there are a few things that could be said as far as priority is that connection also with the streets, the way to access to the school and to live. We know that this number of access will be reduced, but we have the main access from the 15th Street in this corner. Is that something that you guys had a chance to look at, how to make it a nicer connection as far as the connection for the student, for the traffic, and the connection to the buildings?
From this front entry here on the south side of the campus, is that what you're talking about? Or are you also talking about access on the perimeter, east, west, north sides?
Talking more on 15 and California, knowing that there will be the main entrance in the next years. But there will be a resume to this access mostly.
Okay.
So I think actually in the later part, Rachel, you are actually going to talk about the front entrance and how we can maybe get some of the dumpsters and trash cans and cafeteria moved to another location. I think that's part of where we're going.
That is one of, yes, it is one of the items of discussion, but it's good to hear that that's one of your priorities. One of the items that has been discussed is trying to have a secure entrance, right? So if the campus is opened for limited points of the day during drop-off and pickup, but then is safely enclosed so that there's one security point, and that it's clear as to where someone needs to go during those times where they can come to that one secure spot.
Do we have any more questions right now?
David Weifel said in the chat about incorporating shade into the design. David, would you want to talk about that for a moment?
Sure. My kids go to the Santa Monica schools, and most of the schools seem to be lacking in shade for the children. They're always trying to hide underneath the wings of the buildings or in the hallways during the summer, or near the summers or after. It seems like the schools could benefit from an overview of the architectural designs to incorporate some sort of a natural shading ability, or extending roof types over certain areas so it balances out the open spaces. Positive and negative spaces, using leaves and using other components that create shade for the children.
Okay, great. That's a great point to take into consideration, both for standalone structures as well as extended overhangs on new buildings.
Any other priorities or comments anyone wants to share?
Yes, if you hear me again.
Go again.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. It's just something on the, we have a very dense site. Lincoln is a great campus, but it's very limited by the surroundings. And if you compare to another middle school, like John Adams is a much bigger site, great for them, and for Lincoln is a bit more challenging. So the question would be like, would you consider in the next process to have a little higher levels of buildings and maybe less footprints? What I mean by that is that basically it's so dense as of now that we don't have much more on open space. We heard about shading, which is great. We could have a bunch more like trees and a natural surrounding within the building, and also anticipating for the future by, instead of having a new additional building, having maybe tear down some building and have a higher levels. So you give some space for the future and also space for activities and better areas again.
So having increasing the density of the buildings to allow for more open areas for fields and play and outside. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, and we'll touch on that as well a little bit later. But that's an interesting priority. How high do you think the community can take on this property? Just a wild guess for yourself.
Well, the guess will be if you look at the, I will see that the setback that you have basically for the front line setback, and you still have some area, depending again which building you want to tear down and which one you want to because it's not a question to add a level and existing buildings that too old will be costly, too expensive. So we're talking about a brand new building. And to your question, I will say again, it will be more to the question of the teacher and the users, how more they're comfortable, but 3-4 levels is something possible.
Okay.
Along with the shade question, I see Lydia in the chat has talked about on rainy days, there's no places for the kids to go except to pile up in the hallway and in the cafeteria. I don't know if you want to talk more about that, Lydia, but I do think that goes along very well with the shade question of spaces for kids to be. We don't get that much rain, but when we do have rain, we're not prepared for it.
Yes, and I also think it's a bit of a danger in the way the kids are all cramped in these spaces during these rainy days. Although we don't have that many rainy days, but still. Thank you.
Yeah, when they do occur.
Thank you. Great. It's a great point as well.
Any more questions or chat items? If not, I'll put everybody back on mute, except for our speakers, and we'll have another round of questions in a little bit.
Yeah. So, campus improvements, and what you see. Oh, am I muted again?
No, you're okay.
Okay. What you see here is a floor plan. So again, just to orient you a little bit, building 500 with the wood shop is on the top left. Building 400 with the music and art is on the bottom left. The building K with this special ed, and the teen center is on the bottom right. And no, we don't have two buildings side by side in the street. The drawing on the right is the second floor of the main admin and library building, which is here at the center of the campus. So using the EdSpec as our guide, what we did is we worked with the Lincoln Middle School Steering Committee and confirmed that there are 45 teaching stations, or classrooms, one would call them, on the campus. 40 of them are smaller than the EdSpec, that aspirational EdSpec square footage. But of those 40, 27 of them fit well within the state standards for classroom sizes. And we also discovered that 10 of them do have the availability to enlarge. So by removing walls or making some minor adjustments to the structure of the building, we can make those classrooms a little bigger and closer to meeting the EdSpec standards. So if we were to take the EdSpecs and build them completely at a one-story level, speaking to your concern, Stefan, you can see it would completely cover the campus. The track and field would be all building, right? No fun. So if we tighten up a little bit and we look at doing two-story buildings, but still trying to meet all of the EdSpec square footage, you can see it still takes up a considerable amount of the site. So our goal is to balance, to aim for those EdSpecs, but work within what is realistic and also what is really needed at Lincoln. So our intent is to reuse those existing spaces that are big enough, to enlarge the ones we can, and then look at building new construction if and where we really do need those extra classroom spaces.
Hey, Rachel. Let me just throw in something because not everybody is going to have taken in the EdSpecs deeply. We talk a lot, I mean, a lot of this is driven by this idea of having larger classrooms. And it's, you know, the classic standard in California is a 960 square foot classroom. And what we have found in a lot of our classrooms on this campus are even smaller than that. Some of the science labs are bigger, but most of them are smaller. What we find is when we give teachers an extra 200 feet, an extra 300, 400 feet, you know, when that classroom expands, then the teacher can do something else in the learning structure other than having a bunch of kids sitting in rows staring at the back of the kids in front head. You know, that one learning modality is an interesting one and good for a lecture experience, but that's not exactly the way all kids can learn and with the ways we can learn in the best ways. So giving students movable furniture in a larger room, giving the teachers opportunities, has a lot of other chances for small group learning, more presentation, for more working on one's own, for sometimes doing a lecture, sometimes breaking it up, and doing different ways of teaching, different modalities of learning in the middle of the classroom setting. And I think, and that's what really gives a lot more opportunities to express and learn in a deeper way. Sorry, I kept hearing that word of larger classrooms, and I didn't feel like we answered the question of why, which we do in the EdSpecs, by the way. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Carrie. I much appreciate it. And so to speak of that density issue, our proposed options are all looking, and it looks like it needs to think again, are all looking to go as dense as feasible for the campus, going up a couple of floors, looking to reuse as many of those existing classrooms as we can, and with a compromise. And that compromise is intended to increase as much green space available on the campus. So this is where you need to put on your thinking cap. We've developed a number of development options. We're going to share two with you today. They're very different, and the intent is to really get your input. feel free, use that chat box on the side, take your notes, and be ready to speak to these items when we open the floor again. So this is option A, if everyone can see it. It proposes a renovation of the central admin classroom building in the middle, leaving the new library intact, and the new or recently ongoing renovation of Building 300. Notice the front lawn is still here, as well as your new track and field. The cafe kitchen would be significantly remodeled or potentially rebuilt and expanded. The gymnasium would be replaced and relocated to the northeast corner of the campus. The arts complex, which houses your theater, your performing arts classroom, it would be relocated to the east side of the campus, the southeast corner. A new drop-off would be identified next to both the gym and the arts complex here on the east. And the new two-story classroom building here on the southwest, as well as two-story replacing Building 500 with a two-story classroom on the northwest. So it has advantages and disadvantages. The arts complex location allows for acoustic separation from the academic core, shall we say, of the building. It has a little more room to breathe on this east side of the campus, so potentially could get bigger. Its support spaces could be a little larger. The classroom buildings are located close to one another, easy travel back and forth between campuses. And the hope is that we can extend your parking lot. Disadvantages, notice there is no pool in this option. The black space is reduced. The delivery and trash is still at the front of the school, so we would need to work on the design of it so that it is concealed and the access is better. If we were to remove Building 300 and put some of its classrooms into these new classroom buildings, then that would potentially connect the cafe to the parking lot and adjust that trash and delivery. So this is a 3D model of that option. So again, you have the Building 100 in the middle, the admin classroom in the middle, and our new buildings are the blue around the perimeter. So option B has, let's see, I'll start, where did I start before? So renovating again the admin classroom building in the middle, enlarging those rooms that we can enlarge, converting some of the smaller rooms into resource spaces, staff offices, that kind of thing. Keeping the library as it is. Keeping the arts on the left side of the campus, southwest corner of the campus. However, replacing the auditorium, replacing the Building 400 with a new arts complex, two-story building that is including additional support spaces that you currently don't have. Replacing Building 500 on the northwest side, again, with a two-story building. Then moving the gym up to the northeast corner. However, notice this version has a pool. So it includes a pool as well as separate lockers for the community to use the pool. This one also moves the cafe and kitchen. So the cafe kitchen are located on the east side of the campus. So now service yard and access is off of 16th Street, and a new two-story classroom building is located at the front. Building 300 is no longer there. The existing kitchen is gone. And what this does is it extends your courtyard out to the cafe. So it has its advantages and disadvantages too. There is a community outdoor pool. The trash for the cafeteria has been moved to the side. However, it potentially has some underground, or it has less parking unless we go underground. The blacktop space is smaller in this version. And the arts complex is right next to classrooms, which can be a challenge when when the band gets very excited and they want to go outside and jam a little bit. So again, this is a real quick model of what that version would look like, with blue being the new buildings and white being your existing buildings. And notice the pool there in the corner. So we're going to walk through kind of step by step. Now that you've seen both of those options, let's look at them side by side. So, and this is where you can put into the chat or take your notes. Option A places your arts complex on the east, near parking and an expanded quad. Option B keeps your arts complex on the west at its current location, but tears it down and replaces it. So, which do you like better? Option A has no pool, that the community would be using nearby pools for their use. And option B replaces the existing pool with an outdoor pool facility. This one would need underground parking to be able to provide for all the extra kind of building area. Whereas this one could utilize current auxiliary parking up on the northeast corner with a kind of a subgrade parking and play court on top. Next, once it gets there, is option A has the gym next to the arts complex. So you can have that relationship between those two kind of performing activities. Whereas option B places the gym between your pool and your cafeteria. So potentially you can use your cafeteria for events. If there's an event at the gymnasium, you can have your cafeteria as that breakout space before or after. Which do you like better? Option A with the cafeteria keeps it in the heart of the campus. It could potentially serve both courtyards, depending on how its reconfiguration is worked. Or option B shifts the cafeteria to the far east, helps its delivery access, and it would serve the quad facing to the west. Having it next to the street, both locations do offer community entrance into the cafeteria without going into the secure campus portion. So both have that benefit. Then we have our classroom buildings. Option A creates an academic corridor. It also kind of enlarges and lengthens that two-story portion. So the library building is currently 2 stories. And so we're proposing if we put building 500 replacement 2-story building here, as well as a new L-shaped 2-story building on the corner. Option B creates a cross-campus relationship between your classroom buildings. And keep in mind, the admin central building has classrooms as well. So there would be from the northwest to the southeast, and students crisscrossing the campus. So you mentioned parking and drop-off. So right now, the drop-off is fairly small, much more in tune with when the campus was built in the 30s. Everyone was walking and no one was driving around. And so now we're proposing a lengthened drop-off areas. Option A is showing it on the east side of the campus. Option B is showing it on the north side on Washington Ave. Keep in mind, these are at the perimeter of the campus, so they will need coordination and communication with the city. for making that work. But we didn't want to pull them onto the campus because as we talked about, this campus being so dense already, allocating drop-off within the campus structure itself would be difficult for not just the classroom buildings, but your outdoor spaces. So, what are your preferences for the two options presented today? So you have the option A and option B. And again, we're trying to just show you ideas and how making big decisions such as where to put your arts complex can really impact the quality of the site and the space of how your campus works together. We'd love to hear your input.
Hey everyone, you've all been unmuted, so please speak if you'd like to.
I just don't understand how the school has so much money to pay for new buildings when we can't pay for teachers.
Certainly, because they come from two very, very different funds. The general fund, which is supplied by the state and mostly through our property taxes, but also through some money we get from the city of Santa Monica, pays for staff and pays for the operations, the running of the schools. These monies are through the general obligation bonds that the voters have voted to additionally tax themselves. We did Measure SMS and went to the voters in 2018. It was a $485 million bond measure. These funds are designated and can only be spent on capital expenditures. They can only be spent on buildings, improvements of buildings, facilities. It's one of the interesting conundrums that I have to say, as the person who manages both the bond program and also maintenance and operations, I have one hand where we do have some pretty good funding and another hand where we are completely starving. So it's a challenge both ways.
I mean, I'm going to have a clear preference for option B, what with the pool. I mean, I think there's a couple of things I'd like to just sort of highlight. One, things that, I mean, I guess you can hear it in my voice. I'm Australian, so I come from a country where we sort of think a lot about swimming and swim safety and stuff. Just as sort of a reminder, drowning's the #2 leading cause of death for kids under 15. And I think it's the #2 for 4 to 25. So it's a real thing. And for every drowning, there are 4 near drownings that result in hospitalization and some sort of long-term thing. So the sort of disregarding that as something that we should be thinking about worries me a little bit. Beyond that, there's all sorts of great research that shows learning to swim improves confidence, improves physical lifestyles and all those sorts of good things as well. And actually it has improves on the academic performance as well. So those are all sort of things just on the straight up pool side of things. If I'm looking at a couple of the other sides of things between the A and B, I'm a little bit confused on option A, why we need to devote a chunk of stuff to parking. Why can't, like, if everybody was dead set on option A, why couldn't we take that parking up the top and still make that pool and throw some parking underground under the lower parking? The idea of devoting ground space to parking when we could potentially put these things underground just sort of boggles my mind a little bit. Like in today's day and age especially. And then the other thing, there was some sort of comment made about how option A sort of aligns up the academics up and down one side. I just note that, and please somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe every kid is involved in the arts at Lincoln and is involved in PE. So this notion of having sort of one corridor that kids are going to travel versus the option B where they're going cross campus, I think is a bit of a furphy. I don't think it really holds much water. The reality is that the kids have been going to and fro across the campus regardless of either of those two designs. You may in the current sort of scheme, we have the 500 building is devoted more to the 8th graders, and so that sort of keeps them a little bit separate. But even then, they still come down for their band stuff, music stuff, for their PE stuff, and none of that's going to change with this design. So I worry a little bit that there's sort of some pejorative cross-campus stuff versus the easily aligned stuff. Just coloring the language for those two. So those are sort of 3 comments that sort of stand out to me off the top of my head. So.
P is just one
Great,
period.
thank you.
Sorry?
Just one period. I mean, so whereas most of the day would be.
Well, but then there's also there's also the PE is only 1 period, but then so is music only 1 period, and there's only 6 periods in a day. So now you've got a third of your day is with moving cross campus anyway.
The little parking lot at the northeast corner that still remains in option A is used a lot, like for the mock trial group that was going downtown. It was a meeting point where people, just met before. It gives a little bit of space so that you don't crowd the streets when there's a school activity that's going off to somewhere else. I mean, I guess these groups could meet on the street, but so having that little space to gather is used a lot, I would say. To have a bit of avoid overcrowding.
There are a number of other spaces that people gather. I mean, I know my daughters take the art stuff, and that they always gather down in that little area just beside the library on that steps thing.
On the amphitheater steps?
Yeah, that amphitheater thing, like that was always used for gathering meeting points for those art ones. I can't remember, like LACMA or whatever.
Great.
So one of the questions was about, could we just put 2 levels of parking and subterranean parking at I guess it's the southeast corner of the campus. It is conceivably possible to do that, but subterranean parking is very expensive compared to surface parking. And so what it would mean is eventually taking money away from other projects, classrooms or arts or physical education areas, and putting it into parking. So although I would say it's not off the table, it's probably not a desirable option, primarily because of the cost and the result of that cost being less money going into educational spaces.
And there's always a balance. Every option has pros and cons, right? Every decision has its pluses and minuses, and so picking that right balance on when is it cost effective to make this choice, how much parking do we need, how much parking does the community use? So one of the conversations that we had during our charrettes is the amount of parking during the daytime for the teachers is a different load than what the community is looking to use on the weekends. And the balance of how much parking should the campus provide for the community use on the weekend.
That they're stopping street cleaning. It's only going to happen once a month. So that changes a lot, because you won't have the same problem with parking during the week, because you won't have to move your car 4 times. There are 2 days a week, 3 times a month that are now totally free for parking. So much more parking.
May I ask who was speaking just then, just so I can put a name to a voice? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Quick question. The study that you're doing and the improvement you're planning to do is something that will be done in how many years?
Okay, yeah, let me jump into there. And I also wanted to answer Rebecca's question. This is a test fit of a long-term master plan. And the next thing, or one of the other things we'll talk about, are some immediate projects. Do we have money to do all of this? No, we don't. But part of the process is thinking about where we might go so that we can figure out where to go next. And it might be, and with every one of our designs, and you're going to hear this at all the elementary schools, you hear it at Santa Monica High School, if this is the end of the improvement funds, we want to make sure we've ended at a good place, whatever that place is. If then we can take another step, we'll take another step. So it's always about thinking about what can we do to take the next step. And we know that, you know, things could be good or things might change. So we know this will be multiple phases.
And that means at the
and
end of
also
every
planning ahead. Sorry.
at the end of every phase, the campus will be whole. We won't be looking at having, you know, half the students in portables, and if we don't pass another bond, they live in portables forever. To Carrie's point, we look to make although not complete, to make the campus whole at the end of every phase. Sorry, Rachel, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Just the fact that if you think 10 steps ahead, it helps you make those current decisions to not regret in the future, or also not to doubt the decisions that you're making now, because you know that, oh yes, what we do today will help us 10 years in the future, 20 years in the future. So that's why we use that trail map. Master planning really is kind of a roadmap for how a campus can develop and grow and change, and be flexible as well.
Just on the finances side, I'm 99% sure, and I certainly think that there should be discussions had if the question of a pool comes down to a finances question, that TSM, the nonprofit that's been teaching kids to swim in Santa Monica for the last 60 years, would be very interested in helping raise funds for that, especially if we could be guaranteed a home for teaching kids after school, which we currently do use the pool for. So, I mean, I realize that these are big numbers, but if the difference between putting parking underground and putting it on the ground, taking up a whole lot of extra real estate with parking is the difference in the cost to have a pool or not, then you know, let's at least have that open as a discussion point, because there are definitely members of the community who would be interested in helping out. Figure that out. And what with the 2028 Olympics coming along, there's also potential for USA Swimming to get involved. There are funds to help get swimming facilities available for international teams that are going to need places when the Olympics come. So it's an unusual opportunity there that TSM's in a good position to help facilitate.
Great, thank you. Did anyone have any comments about the drop-off? Any particular care or concern about where a drop-off is located?
Well, the drop-off is indeed a big challenge. And as you can see in your presentation, you were mentioning that people currently go within the campus at the door. It's not possible, actually. It's closed every morning. You cannot go in. And so indeed, it's a big challenge to make it work. 16th Street is a great area because it's pretty large. It will be for sure to work with the city. You can make some sort of drop-offs that it's safe when you drive, it's safe when you stop by, and not having those kind of situations that we currently have when people are stuck, basically. That's what's happening. So yes, that will be a great thing to do. Washington Avenue, you have a street you have 15th Street on the other side as well. So that will make the situation maybe more difficult than 16th Street when you have a clean street with no intersection, which is dedicated only for Lincoln.
Okay, so you're saying that 16th Street, of the two locations, 16th Street is better suited?
I concur.
Correct.
Okay, great.
And
thank you.
And of your work to what Rufus was talking about, the circulation cross campus also, which is a great thing when the students are able to walk all over to feel at their place. Having on one side the entries, knowing that on the other side you have the education part, which is mostly on 14th Street for what we understand. It's a great way. It's also 6th Street, hopefully you can open, and we can see right now it's a bit tight, this opening, but making the larger entry to feel that it's a real entry, that it's not like it's today. Today it's a bit confusing where is the exact entrance on this campus. That would be an opportunity to make a real entrance on that side.
I think Lydia has something to contribute. I'm not sure she's been unmuted yet.
Everyone is unmuted. If they might have to unmute themselves. We'll try.
I don't know if people would continue to do that, but at the moment on 16th Street, you often have cars parked, and then there's often a second lane of cars that still allows for other cars to go back and forth. And I don't see that being possible on Washington. So you have often 3 or 4 lanes of cars on 16th, and it works. I mean, it's not ideal, but it seems to work very well in a way because of people go slowly and.
Kids should be encouraged to walk to school and not drive.
Yes, thank you.
Rachel, I had 2 questions. This is Mohammed. I wanted to know on option A or B, the entrance, which one would provide a wider entrance for the kids and more space? 16 seems to be a little bit limited, you know, for a drop off or even pick up. If you could, you know, answer that. Also, on either one of these options, is it possible to consider putting the gym and the pool together in a format of either one on the bottom, the other one on top, which would create more space for whatever needs to be used, either, you know, basketball courts or more green space, or even the parking that's being discussed? Thank you.
Great, good question. So I would say if you can tell here at the front door of Lincoln right now, the front lawn is being kept fairly intact, and the new classroom building on option B is kind of enclosing it, where now you have on option A, you see the cafeteria in building K. So option B gives a bit of a landing available for the drop-off. And again, this being a test fit, it's not a real designed parking lot and that kind of stuff, but potentially this turnabout could be melded in with the parking lot and that front entry expanded a little bit greater. But also, depending upon the design of the cafeteria and its actual footprint, it's possible that it could get pushed back a smidge, get a little wider and a little shorter on the front, giving a larger landing at the front of the school there. Both options on the east side, if you notice here, there's a portal between either the cafeteria and the gym or the arts complex in the gym. So that portal offers those either after hours with a security kiosk for your after hours facilitators, or community event entrance, or during the school day an entrance as well. So that's one of the reasons why the drop off here is that students could be entering between the arts complex and the gym. And to be perfectly honest, both versions could support a drop off on 16th Street. But for the purpose of our discussion, we wanted to show you like 2 different versions.
Scott would like to.
Well, actually, Carrie, there was one more part of Mohammed's question.
Sorry.
It's okay. Mohammed, you'd asked about stacking the gym and the pool. Although it is, again, conceivably possible to do that, both of those are really challenging spaces to stack because they both need clear space, the full width. You don't get any columns in between. Putting a pool, I'm imagining we'd be talking about something like a 25 meter by 20 meter, by 25 yard pool or something. Putting that on the roof is probably, it's a lot of weight to put up top. The other option of putting the pool on the bottom and the gym above it, easier to do, but you still have, probably 100-foot span So structurally, it's a very expensive thing to do. And I apologize that I'm constantly talking about how expensive things are. But again, our goal is to get as much out of whatever the money ends up being over the long term. Our goal is to get as much out of it as possible. So I think your broader point, though, of is it possible to go up instead of out, is something that we can look at. But with the pool and the gym, those two are probably not compatible.
By the way, the person who's speaking is Steve Massetti, our bond program manager, and part of his charge is to make sure that we spend the money well. I'm going to unmute Scott, who would like to speak, and then I'll go to Lydia next, and then I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, Florence, okay? So Scott, you are unmuted.
Oh, hi, thanks. Hi, thank you, Rachel, for your presentation. Just a quick question. I assume that there was some programming done in the initial phase where, the laundry list of items was presented. It seems like an awful lot of buildings are, being removed versus trying to be renovated. And there seems to be a lot of shifting of buildings from one side of the campus to the other. My concern would be in the staging of construction. As you tear down the arts building, where are those, or I guess, you tear down the gym to build the arts building. Okay, so where's the gym for the students? Have these two options that you presented, A and B, do they consider the construction sequencing and the phasing of the whole thing? And then assuming we run out of money at some point during construction, it seems to me, trying to be hopeful, that we're going to tear down one building and assume there's money left over after cost overruns, etc. I recall how much the budget for the library building was. It was. I'm pretty certain that was way over budget from initial, cost estimates. And what happens to budgets during construction. So I just, do A and B consider the staging of, what has to go first? Because I think that maybe one of the options might be better.
Yeah. I think the priorities and phasing is
go ahead, Karen.
The priorities and phasing of this is a very big question. And I think that's also where we're sort of trying to understand what is the driving priority. It is better when we can to build a new something before we tear the old something down. Better to build a gym before you tear down a gym, or better to build a theater but that does sometimes depend on making sure we have access of funding. But Rachel, would you want to talk a little bit about the analysis of our existing classrooms and their functionality and how they might work or not work?
Sure, I can. And I'm actually going to go to this next slide. So after this kind of floor conversation, we are going to talk about next steps and those potential phasing ideas, which will hopefully answer some of your questions, because yes, phasing is a concern. But I'm going to also use this slide to discuss the buildings in particular. So what we've been doing is looking at the structure of the building, how much, especially these older buildings, pre-Northridge earthquake buildings, how much can they be touched without triggering a full seismic upgrade or be considered that they're not seismically viable to stay in place. And that's a delicate balance in each building. This campus was built over the last 84 years. Each building was built practically a different decade. So each building has its own issues and its own criteria. So that is something that I don't want to say exactly which building can stay and which one can't, because it really depends on how much we are wanting to touch it. But what we're looking at potentially here, so just to zoom in a little bit here, building 500 in the short term could be enlarged. Some of these classrooms, you see here, these dark green classrooms, could be enlarged to that ed spec level or near the EdSpec level, and improvements to the exterior being done to accommodate some of those outdoor project-based learning. So that's something that you are using those tight budgets to give a big impact to the benefit of the campus. As well as in the admin building here in the center, and this is the ground floor that we're showing here. And there's a lot of little spaces, those are the admin offices. And then these larger squares, which are your classrooms. Some of these walls between the larger squares can be torn down and turned into big classrooms or big teaming studios where lots of collaboration happens. Some of the walls, I'm sorry, yes? Some of the walls cannot be torn down because they have brace frames in them, or they are kind of connected to the structure in such an important way that we don't really want to touch it or else we'll cause trouble. So we're trying to investigate the best locations to enlarge, and so we don't get to the version where I showed all buildings over the entire campus. How can we use the existing buildings as wisely as possible? Now, building 300 is an interesting one. And I'm getting a repeat on myself. I'm not sure if...
Might be somebody who's on two different devices.
Oh, right. Building 300 is, you know, the rooms are good sized, it's relatively new, and it's being modernized. So right now, it would not be in our quick start first group of projects. It would not be wise to say, oh yeah, next year, let's tear it down. We're not going to do that. But if we're looking at the master plan in a 10, 20, 30-year chunk, maybe it is opportune to remove building 300 in 15, 20 years if that accommodates a campus layout that will better suit Lincoln for the next 50. So tough choices all around, and some of the decisions that you make in phase 1 will impact what you want to do and what you can do in phase 2. But to answer the concern about tearing down a building before you build a new one, yeah, it's unlikely. There are conditions where if there really is no room on a campus at all to be done, you can bring in temporary facilities to help support campus if, say, their cafeteria is being remade and you don't have room to build a new cafeteria. You can bring in temp cafes to assist with that. But it's something that would be considered throughout the planning process.
Lydia, you have your hand up.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say that for all the reasons Rufus mentioned, I really think it's essential that Lincoln get a pool. To our architect here, we don't really have any other community resources that would allow us to use a different pool. And I am very concerned that we live by the ocean and that the stats that Rufus mentioned are pretty high. So that seems to me a major priority in any plan to keep the pool. Second, I haven't heard if you have established the actual number of spaces needed to cover the staff. And in combination with that, I'd like to see a cross-use of space. Right now, we are cross-using the space of the basketball court with temporary parking for events, for example. And it is quite needed because we have a large performing arts program, and we do hold all kinds of events in our auditorium, and it is a complete nightmare for the neighborhood. So we would never be able to afford the number of underground parking spaces that we would need to serve both those needs. Thinking of making sure that if we have some basketball courts, we can also drive cars onto them, so they're not so far deep in the campus. next, you spoke about the idea of having the arts complex isolated from the classroom, as it could be a nuisance sound-wise. Right now, we have an old auditorium and very old classroom, music classroom, in which we hold band and orchestra classes, and that's buffered by the library to the other classrooms in the main building. And I haven't heard from either of my two kids attending this school or anyone else that there is noise pollution, even coming from these very old buildings with walls that I'm sure are, and windows that I'm sure are much thinner than what you would renovate with. So I don't think that's a real problem. Lastly, in the arts complex, I don't see, I mean, I know in particular that in trying to have all grades be able to take art, well, for now, we don't have the teachers or the money to pay for that. But if we did, we wouldn't have the physical space to have art being taught by two teachers. So we could cover 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in art. Right now, there is a little bit of an area right next. I think this area is maybe in, it's hard to tell what color they're in there, but there is a little void.
Right here.
That might be
next to where the kiln is.
Yeah, exactly. Where it would be easy and not disruptive to add an arts classroom so that we could provide the arts programming that I believe a lot of people wish for their kids. Of course, I understand there's many other points to that, but I know it was a hurdle in the past to have this consideration. As far as the auditorium is concerned, you know, I'd like to see some renovation, and the only thing that is really lacking are changing rooms for the kids while they have performances. I don't have the other details, but choir is using an entirely new portion of this library building, I guess, or whatever. It's a new portion. So they don't even come into play about lacking space as far as the art concept. Band and orchestra are using very, very old buildings that could really use a bit of help. So anyway, I really would not want to see this auditorium be destroyed and moved to a completely different space. I mean, that would be a massive misuse of funds, in my opinion. I think these are all my points. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Well, I know it's getting a little late, so maybe if we move on to next steps and then go from there. So what the slide I'm on now is potential phase 1. So as many of you have said, trying to use what limited funds are available wisely, but still having a big impact, as well as hitting those top priorities. If you remember at the very beginning of the presentation, there was that top priority of auditorium, building 500, and the cafeteria. So this is looking at enlarging building 500 up here on the top northwest corner of the campus. So enlarging those classrooms, providing what is needed in the science lab so they're in great shape, converting the current wood shop into a more flexible makerspace so it can offer wood and robotics or metalwork. And then 2 of the classrooms, converting them into that teaming commons that I mentioned earlier from the district ed specs, a more flexible space for teachers working together. Then at the auditorium, a modernization, maybe with acoustics, looking at ADA compliance, which is an issue at the auditorium right now, access to the facility, as well as utilizing, Lydia, as you were saying, utilizing this space to kind of strengthen the connection between the 400 building and the auditorium. Another phase 1 project is the cafeteria. So simple but impactful improvements can be made to the dining space itself, opening it up to the exterior, to your front lawn, improving some of the furniture layouts and acoustics within the space to suit all the different services it provides, as well as pulling from the district food service master plan and making those kitchen improvements in the back. So then, to speak to your idea of phasing, what would you do after that? So phase 2, you could then tear down your gym, and I'm just going to use option A just as an example. So it's just to show those kind of steps that you do need to take on phasing on how do you get from point A to point B. So for using option A as our example, if we were to tear down the gym, build a new gym, tear where the pool currently was, no offense to the pool folks, I'm just using it as an example, and then building your auditorium where the gym used to be, that would then allow those two pieces of construction to occur without impacting current use of your campus, right? Because you would have gym throughout the year as well as theater throughout the year while those two projects are happening. Then you would look at removing the arts complex because it's been replaced already, as well as, and this would be a tough one to figure out the best way to accommodate the students, is remove the building 500. And I'm showing there's this little wing here on the building. It is not in the original construction of the building. It's kind of tied to the cafeteria. And it really breaks this, both for security purposes and as well as that cohesive campus feel. So we're proposing if you were to demo that wall, that wing, and then that's when you would build your two new classroom buildings here on the west side. So again, using option A as an example, it keeps building 300. So the only buildings being demoed are, removed completely is the auditorium 400 because they're being replaced by the arts complex, and then building 500 being replaced with the two-story building. So just an idea to show you those steps that you would take. Again, this could be 15, 20 years, 25 years. But looking at phase 1 on what are the improvements that we can make now that would really help support Principal Culpepper and all of you great teachers at Lincoln Middle School for your projects. So as I said, we are in campus planning. We're at the beginning of this journey and we're about halfway through. So taking all the amazing insight that you've given us today, all of your concerns, your worries, as well as the great ideas that you've given us, we're going to be working with the district to continue project development. We'll be putting together costs to help prioritize which projects can move forward first. What kind of phasing do we need to do to ensure that it's successful? And then we'll be coming out to you again in the fall for community input before finalizing it with the board in the fall. So I want to say thank you very much for participating, for listening, for providing all the comments that you've provided in the chat. It's very helpful to us, to the design team. And so thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
At this point, if there's any questions, please ask.
Thanks everyone who came virtually to give some feedback with regards to your priorities for what you'd like to see tackled first with regards to future building at Lincoln. Really appreciate y'all's time and input.
And Florence, if you don't mind, I think you asked a question to everyone here. Said, when you visit campus, are there any spaces in a condition that you would be surprised to see at Santa Monica? Would you want to speak to that question a little bit more? And is there anyone who has a response to you? No?
Florence
Yes,
needs to be muted again.
I'll say something.
Oh, no, Florence needs to be unmuted again. I think she got muted.
I'm unmuting her, but somebody also wanted to say something. Florence, you're unmuted.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I feel like there's like, you know, when you're on your phone and it's like auto correcting the wrong thing every time. Like, how did unmuted become unmated? I was just curious with that question because as we kind of think about priorities, I was wondering if there was any building where people come on a campus and they're just like, oh, we really need to do something with that. As they kind of think about where we would want to start when you're thinking of phases and things like that. That's all.
I have an opinion on that, if I may. I do think that the woodshop area is really almost like an antique area, and really is a stark contrast with the rest of the school. This area could use really, again, to have double duty or triple duty, whichever your plans can afford. And the spot that I was pointing to on the map is this ochre color or brownish color, where really an additional arts room should be. Florence pointed out to me that one of the band or orchestra classroom used to be an arts room that got hijacked by music. But I would think that at this very point, there is not enough space to projects drying. There is not enough space for folks to make their projects, and really the arts area needs to be expanded. And it could be done at low cost, given this space that's there, and it wouldn't disrupt other things. These two areas seem to me big priorities.
Great. Thank you.
And I encourage anyone else, if you want to just throw it in the chat box too, because they're going to save it. And we can always look at that later and integrate some of those thoughts as decisions are made, considering how much money we actually have for any projects that would take place in the first phase.
Okay. Rachel, we had a question from Rebecca earlier. She has no microphone. So her question was basically, could you please explain which option A or B is better for overall phasing?
So that's a good question. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Okay. So much like on the option A, you can build the arts complex before removing the existing one. Option B would allow you to build the cafeteria before you need to remove it, right? But if you notice, the arts complex stays where it is. So option B would need to accommodate arts in some fashion while that building is being constructed. So that has a challenge phasing wise. Option A also has a challenge phasing wise on the kitchen, because modernizing the kitchen or reconstructing the kitchen would require a temp kitchen to be in place. Both options have a challenge with building 500. So classrooms, building 500, I think, Florence, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it has eight classrooms. It's got 2 science, I think, and 6 classrooms. So those students would need to find homes in other buildings on the campus before that could be constructed. However, if, for example, the new classroom building in either option A or B is built prior to demoing building 500, it might be easier to accommodate those students while building 500 is being replaced. So it's a bit of a jigsaw or a Tetris, you know, where you're trying to fit the pieces and keep students out of portable buildings, or if they are in interim housing for a very limited amount of time. And then, as I think Mr. Massey said, leaving your campus whole at the end of every construction period. So it's not half built, and then you have to wait 3 years for the next half to be made. So I hope that answers your questions. I don't think I can give you a yes or no on which one is better because they both have their challenges.
Yes, and if I may, you are talking about stages. One of the things also that we are talking about the density that we can see on both option A and B are denser actually. What happened, it's denser than the existing building or existing campus. We're very surprised that you don't have, you only have 2 levels on those projects. You don't have one option, and maybe there will be option C with a level 3, 4, 5, and why not 10? But the point is that it will, by doing that, it will maybe help on the staging, which is a valid concern. It will help also on the cost because less footprint means that the building will be less expensive at the end of the day. But also it will be from space for the future because what Kiri was saying that you guys are looking at different stage or I mean different steps as construction that could be in 2 years, 5 years, we don't know. But if you look at the option A and B right now, it's full, it's packed. It means that if we're looking about in 15, 20 years, then we will have to demolish again more buildings that has been done. So it will be better as an option here to us hire all the buildings, not all, some buildings, to free some open space. Another point also is that if you look at the open space, we're in California, so we spend a lot of time outside. PE is very obstructed here. You don't have much space that you used to have. You could, like the basketball court is very small. So all of that could be a great thing to do. And we haven't heard, and I wanted to ask this question also to all of you teacher and maybe Florence. What of the things that is being great so far that we were able to have the 6th grade, the 7th grade, and the 8th grade in different areas of the campus or different levels, especially with the 8th grade and not to be mixed with the other one. Is that something that has been considered is in those 2 options for the layout of those 2 options?
Yeah, we still talked about that. They know that currently the way the campus is designed, for the most part, students are contained in certain areas, but there's always crossover because sometimes teachers teach multiple grade levels and things like that. But yeah, we talked about that.
And that is also why, to speak to your density, why I asked you, what threshold of height do you feel that this, you know, that the community, because it's not just the district and it's not just this campus, but it's.
Yes. So. What about the tower? Let's do a 15th floor.
Great. There's some great comments that people have raised. The 500 building, I think Ruby, you mentioned, are you asking why to demo 500? And, you know, it's been there 50 years, why not another 50? I think one of the reasons why we're presenting the options, both options are showing 500 to be removed is because it is only serving those 8 to 10 classrooms. It has the opportunity of going vertical because of the, I can show see if I can find that photo again, kind of the height difference between it and the field. It feels lower. It has the opportunity to go vertical without significant impact to the campus. Plus, I think you know, sometimes we design buildings to last 50 to 100 years. And so sometimes it is time to say goodbye to a building. And when we were looking at priorities of which buildings really are the heart of the campus, this center building from the 30s was one that was wanted to be preserved.
Do we have any other questions tonight or any chat issues that have not been resolved yet?
No, Lydia just shared her option C idea. If we were to come back with another option that includes the pool and parking and kind of renovating the auditorium and expanding the arts complex.
Yeah. Great.
Is there anyone else who didn't speak but is on the call and wanted to add anything else to the chat? Because just remember, the chat becomes, it's memorialized of some of the ideas that you want to put out there on the record for the architects and the team to go back and look at. If you want to put something in there, put it in there now, because once they end the meeting, actually, I may not have been paying exact attention at the end. Was there a place, Carrie or Michael, where if after the fact someone goes back and looks at the presentation or has another idea after they kind of marinated on this for a couple of days, did y'all tell them how to submit that feedback?
They can contact me. They can provide the question to myself, and then we will also publish a frequently asked questions, which it could work its way into that as well.
Okay.
Lawrence, what is your laundry list of things in order?
Well, the architects, I'm sure, hate me because I want everything to look great. I mean, anyone.
But you're a lady who knows how to prioritize. So tell me in order.
I mean, honestly, there are some basic things that I just think needs to be done before we even start a construction project. I mean, we cannot continue to go into our auditorium and have peeling, chipping, plaster, and paint. I just feel like it's just so embarrassing as a leader of the school in Santa Monica to walk into that auditorium year after year and see the state of it. I just know we can do better. And so, you know, let's spend the $50K or whatever it costs to paint the auditorium up front and get that going. Guys, comment about the auditorium seat. There's a whole thing with that about I think the slope that makes that way more expensive than typical. Can you all hear me? I'm sorry, I hear someone else talking.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm hearing some reverb.
Yeah.
They're talking about cottage cheese, so if that's you, maybe mute yourself.
You know, so there are some surface updates that I would like to be done right away, because I know that construction takes a long time and we just need to work on those things. I mean, I think the 500s building has great potential because of the size of those classrooms and the ceilings. They're really nice and airy. So that's an area that I know needs some love. And then the music rooms as well. There's some cosmetic things that we can do in a lot of spaces that would really update the campus in a nice way. But I mean, Lydia, you know me, you know I have a laundry list of things.
I want to hear it.
I don't have them all in front of me. I don't have them all in front of me. But I also know, and it's interesting hearing what you all are saying about the pool, because as we think about from the school perspective too, like you all know, I'm totally cool with swimming and this and that, but we don't use the pool a lot during the school day. So as we think about the impact of something that takes up such a big footprint on campus that isn't used every day and students don't access every day, is trying to figure out that balance of giving up space for more community use versus school use, because I can't see any situation where our kids would be in the pool every single day. That's just not going to happen because there's so many different PE units that teachers will be going through. So there's just lots of things to be considered. We don't even know how much money we have yet. We haven't even gotten to the cost analysis. So I think once we get to that point, then we'll really start to figure out, okay, now that we know how much these things would actually cost for these lofty goals that we have, what really are the realistic things that we can do so that we'll actually all be alive to see some of these things come to fruition.
Thank you, Florence. And yes, and that's why for these next steps, we are trying to focus on what can we do within the existing spaces that we have that will give you impact, as well as give you a step up towards those future developments.
I would just say about the theater seats, the challenge is because that whole space is not accessible for the handicap. Redoing the theater seats is a gigantic job. We actually have to go in there and re-slope the whole floor, the seating floor. So it's something we want to do, but it is a big job. And one of the questions is, how much
would it take to fix that? And by then, will we have spent so much money that it would be better to build something different? You know, the rule of thumb is if you're going to spend 50% of the cost fixing things, then you probably should replace it.
Well, for now, can we not just fix the number of seats that you can actually not sit on? I mean, there is
actually not easily. It's been a real challenge. Yeah.
Okay.
I know exactly what you mean, and we've tried it. We've tried a lot of things. Is that you can't get parts for these seats, and we can't replace the whole row of seats without us triggering the fact that now we have an accessibility issue. So. Anyone else have any comment? We're coming to the end of our time. So
I just have a question. When's the next time we see and hear the next iteration of this?
We'll start having some smaller site meetings as we return in August. And then in September, October, we'll have another community meeting that will help us assign the initial priorities. And that will then, we'll take those to the board for the allocation of the remaining SMS funds.
Excellent. Thank you.
And Ruby, I hope you're wrong.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
I'm unmuting Florence so she can say her last statement.
I feel like I'm thinking that Wendy's joking a little bit, and I'm hoping that we're back in school sooner rather than later. But hey, Wendy, guess what? There is some construction happening while kids are not here with our 300 buildings and all of that great stuff. So, but no, just thank you all for the time. I know that for those of us who sit in on a lot of Zoom meetings and things like that, to sit for another 2 hours in the evening and take time away from your families is a sacrifice. But I appreciate that you all did this today because the input that you all shared is important. And it was nice to hear the different perspectives and suggestions that you all had this evening. So just thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Everyone at A4U enjoys working with Lawrence and with the Santa Monica Malibu team, and thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in September.
Well, one last thing is I just wanted to thank whoever sent that meeting reminder. I don't know if it's the school or the PTA, but it was very useful to have it today, just a few hours before the meeting actually happens, because it's very easy for all of us.
I think we can thank Florence for that, right?
Lydia, are you talking about the one that also had the locker reminders and all that stuff?
That one.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Very good.
We got that suggestion from Carrie and them too. They said that worked at Rogers, so we'll definitely send those out whenever we have our meetings, especially since the Zoom link is available then and you don't have to go hunting for it.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
You all have a lovely evening. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. We'll be in touch next fall.
Michael.
Yes.
Please save the chat. I got kicked off, so I'm not sure if I save the chat, I'll get all of it.
Okay. Let me see how to do that. We were recording.
Yeah, we're recording. So down where it says under the group chat, you hit the little 3-dot thing and it says save chat.
Hold on one second. Save chat, got it.
So yeah, it keeps this as a text file, and then if you'll just email it to us, that'd be great. Okay. And then as soon as I close the recording, it'll take a little while, and then it'll tell me the recording's available, and then I'll email that to you, Michael, so you can share it.
Okay.
And thank y'all. Good work.
No, thank you. Thank you for your. I have the recording. I can your description of the ed specs because I thought that was very, very good. I'll use it.
Yeah, we keep talking larger classrooms, larger classrooms. Well, why? Why?
Yeah. Why?
Like,
yeah. Well, I will say with COVID now, it's because everyone's wearing these 6 foot long sticks connects to their head. Yeah. Yeah. That was great.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Okay.
I have no idea what fall's going to look like. So, and everybody's asking me. So, all righty. Well, thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Karen. Good night.
Thank you. Have a good night. We'll be in touch.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.